And welcome back. We are the Theme Park Seniors. I'm Dan. This is my wife Dawn, and I realize it's been a while since we've put a show up, but we wanted to get back into it. We kind of were kept away because of work schedules and moving and some other things going on at Disneyland with all the construction and things they did this year. We made the conscious decision that we were not going to go for a while until all the construction was done, but that is all pretty much over now. And so now we can start thinking about when do we want to go back here and put together another trip here to Disneyland to go. Some of the things that we need to think about when we sit down and start planning a trip is because we don't live just around the corner from the park anymore. We live a little bit of a distance away, so we have to do a little bit of planning. Also, work is still involved as we're getting up in years, but we're not retired yet. So we have to start thinking about that. And also special family events that you may have, excuse me, that you may have coming up, or you want to have days in the park with your entire family. We did that a couple of years
Yes, we
ago.
did. Yeah.
That we had a day with all 12 of our members of our family, or three different families. So that takes a little advanced planning. So that's another one of those things you kind of need to plan for when you're getting ready to go on a big trip like this to Disneyland. To help with that, Don has written some manuals over the last little while to help you with your trip. And we have a Disneyland planning guide and a resource manual. There's a look at the books. These books are available through Don's Etsy store, and you can find those at Etsy at Theme Park Travel if you're interested in those. And we'll look at those a little bit closer down before we close this show out here today. So we get to the point where, all right, we want to make a trip. Where do we start? Well, how do we start looking at what exactly we want to do or when we want to go, Don?
Well, that's really great because for our decision was we wanted to go. One, we wanted to celebrate my birthday, and the other one was it marks my 50th year going to the park since I started as a kid at 8 years old. So that's a big thing for me. And so for our schedules, the way they are, it happens to be summertime is the only time that we do have that availability to go. It is hotter at that time of year, but it is the best time that works for us. So when you do plan a trip, though, you need to figure out is springtime or spring break work for you, or even the holiday time now with Halloween and Christmas being such a big part of the parks now. Is that the best time for you to go? Do you want to go to any of those events? Or do you just want to do it anytime? Or is it a time where there isn't a major thing going on at the park and you just want to just go and enjoy the atmosphere?
Or maybe there's schedules you need to work around. We mentioned still
Hmm.
work schedules. There's also, you may still have kids at home, so you have to think about school schedules, when school is out, when breaks happen in school, whether it be spring or holiday breaks or over the summertime. Or maybe if you still have kids where sports are involved, you might have kids, maybe or grandkids. You
Hmm.
can't take big trips away
Yeah.
because your family expects you to be at their sporting events. Those are all things that you still need to consider when you start talking about planning a trip to the Magic Kingdom.
And you know what? Another thing too, Dan, is you need to think about like for us, we have grandchildren close by
Yeah.
that we want to incorporate them and possibly their parents with the trip for us. So that's something that you need to think about too. Who all is going to be going with you, and how long are they going to be there?
Yep. Dawn mentioned the events that come up that you might want to schedule around. She mentioned the 70th anniversary that comes up in July of 2025. So that's kind of why we're looking towards summer. But some of the other things, other events in the park that you might want to think about, you might be a fan of the different kinds of parades. The
Mhm.
Christmas Fantasy Parade just started back up here recently. Also coming up this summer, they're bringing back the Paint the Night parade as well.
That's right. Yeah, and plus you do have Fantasmic, which is a big hit, and also in DCA you have World of Color.
Right.
So. those are also there.
And some of the other special events, nighttime events they have, of course, so you have to think about Star Wars nights.
That's right.
Are
Yeah.
you a big Star Wars fan? You want to be part of those? Right around Halloween, of course, the Oogie Boogie Bash parties, after-hour parties start,
Hmm.
and there's other after-hours parties scheduled throughout the year as well, Sweetheart Time and things like that. So there's if there's events you want to be part of, that all goes into the timing of when your trip needs to
And
happen.
also the planning, because those events are extra.
Right.
So they're not included in your park admission.
So the next thing we want to look at is when we decide what it is we want to see, how long do we want to go? Would you want to go just for a day? Do you want to go for multiple days? And how that affects not only your scheduling, but also when it comes into budget making and things like that. So how long you want to be at the park becomes a very big question to ask as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can look to see if tickets is just the best way to go. If you can stay with maybe family in the area, you have package deals. I mean, there's all different kinds of mini travel sites that you can go to for different package deals. Also, you might want to see, is it worth the package deal, or can I do a better option doing it myself and figuring out if tickets in a hotel separately is a better deal too.
Right.
So it just all depends on what your needs are.
And one of the other questions you need to ask yourself is, what exactly do you want to do? Am I going just to the parks just to be at the parks, or is there other things that we want to be able to go and experience? There's of course Disneyland and California Adventure. There's downtown
Hmm.
Disney that you certainly could take an afternoon or an all day part of a day to go and shop and explore. That is free, of course. That doesn't take tickets yet, so you can come and go with that as you please. There's all the other parks around Southern California that you
Hmm.
might want to be able to go to and experience things like Knott's Berry Farm, uh, SeaWorld, Legoland is in there as well. Universal Studios, Six Flags Magic Mountain. You want to have a day away at one of the other Southern California venues as well.
Or do you want to take a day to the beach? Huntington Beach is not
Yeah.
that far away, about 20-30 minutes. You have the beach, there's zoos, there's lots of different activities. There's the Grove now that's actually very close by
Right.
as well, that has some entertainment.
Or there's the other entertainment around the area that's not necessarily at the parks. There's fabulous landmarks around Southern California that people might want to go see, especially if you've never been there or
Hmm.
grew up in Southern California like we did. We kind of start to take them a little bit for advantage and not
Yeah.
not pay as much attention. There's wonderful historical sites around California as well, and of course, there's all the different sporting venues and teams that they call Southern
Hmm.
California home. That depending on what time of the year you go, there's all the different major sports within probably an hour's drive of the Disneyland area. If that doing that on an evening is something you want to go and do
Yeah,
also.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have Griffith Observatory and Park. That's a big crowd pleaser. There's even some Walt Disney things that are in the area that I'll have to research and bring to you guys that are pretty interesting to do. There's some tours of his old mansion
Mhm.
that Dusty Sage does. There's, I believe, a park dedicated just to Walt and the train.
Right.
So there are lots of things to go and do if you don't want to spend every waking moment at the parks.
And probably most importantly, and certainly something we have to touch on before we start to wrap this up a little bit, is budget. Exactly how much money do you have available? How much money do you want to spend? We still both work, so we have a little bit more flexibility in our budgetary restraints. But you might be already retired, on a more of a fixed income, where budget becomes a real issue.
Absolutely. I mean, it could, you have even instances where, like what we did several years ago, or a few years ago, we arranged to have our family there. It was I inherited some money that was not expected, and as a tribute, I went ahead and I booked a trip for him and I to spend some time there. But I also spent a day with all my kids and grandkids in the park. And so that took quite a bit of planning because we had so many different age groups with us, and so timelines. So we had to really work with that, but it turned out to be a great time.
Some of the other areas you might need to consider when you start talking about budgetary stuff is where you're going to stay.
Mhm.
Have hotels around the area come in different varieties and different costs. Travel. Are you going to drive? You're going to
Mhm.
fly? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get around once you are there? Are you going to take an Uber from the airport to the resort area? Are you going to take buses back and forth to your hotel? Are you going to walk? Are you going to rent a car? All of those are areas that have to be considered. Food becomes a big issue as
Mhm.
well, along with how many days you're going to be there. If you're going to eat inside the park, that can become a little bit pricey. There are wonderful restaurants around the area, but again, that requires travel, how to get back and forth to those restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of the places range. How do you want to do, your three different meals, your snacks? So yeah, this definitely food plays a major contribution to the budget.
And what something we discovered when we had our that trip with our grandkids is how much of your budget do you want to put towards souvenirs?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
grandkids are always they're always wanting something. Though, so what is the souvenir budget going to be? Not only for you, but for anybody who you might have at the park with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I usually I make shirts, and I've always made our shirts for us. But I'm also a big fan of buying shirts and sweatshirts while I'm there. So to me, it's like, yeah, what exactly do I really want to spend my money on?
So these are things that all go into the planning and resource guide that Dawn put together. And Dawn, before we go, let's take a
Yeah.
closer look at these books you put together. This is the planning guide.
So this is the planning guide, and right off the bat, we have our savings tracker. I mean, for us, it's we have to save every month, or tax return, or whatever money we know is coming in. Goes towards our vacation. We also have a date planning guide where you have to figure out when the best time for you to go. So there's different areas and scenarios there. There's trip packages, which of course we will get into the next episode, and how to figure out the comparisons really well. There's your different budgets, how much it's going to cost you to pay for gas, or how much it's going to cost you for your airline tickets. There's different ways to figure out your budgets and what will work best for you.
And the book is all put together with different notes area to where when you look at the different things that go into your budget,
Mhm.
there's different areas where you can make notes and be able to make comparisons on what's going to be best for you. So as we turn that down, now we can pick up the resource guide, and the resource guide has to do with once you get into the park, and basically would answer most, if not all, of the questions you would have once you're at the park, as to whether you have certain kind of foods you can have or not have because of dietary restraints. If you need handicap mobility, where to be able to rent a wheelchair or a electric vehicle to be able to drive around. What rides have the handicap capabilities? What are the necessary steps you have to go through to be able to qualify for those handicap accessibilities? All things like that. And what's rides that may have height requirements that you can or can't go on for your kids or your grandkids. In any question you might have, the resource guide should be able to answer those, as you can get a better idea of what you can and can't do once you get to the park.
Yeah, and you also have, I mean, when the best time to go is. I mean, it goes in. It's more of a senior older person perspective. We have in here like a ride that may cause motion sickness if you're not able to handle those types of rides. Where the best shade spots are, where what kind of seating does a certain restaurant have. Do they have outdoor seating that's shaded for you? Or what's close by? You have. Let's pick this Pirates of the Caribbean. So With Pirates of the Caribbean, you have a special way that you enter if you have a wheelchair or a or electric vehicle, and so it kind of gives you a guide on what is required of you. You know what type of ride it is, when to go, how fast it is. I mean, it just kind of really goes into the ride, more of it, and informing, being informed for you.
And if you'd like to get copies of these books, these are the ones, the planning guide and the resource guide for Disneyland. Now, be advised, there are also going to be books like these coming out for other parks around the Southern California area. And if you'd like to be able to order these, you can go to Dawn's Etsy page at Theme Park Travel. That's Etsy at Theme Park Travel, and be able to see more about the books, costs, and order them there. If you'd like to have them as well.
Yeah, and I'm making a DCA one now. I'm in the process of doing that.
So those are all things that we can you can get your hands on, help you get started putting together your travel and your budgetary and your plans for your next trip to Disneyland, for wherever it may be from. So let's kind of bring this first episode back to a close here. But it gives us a chance to also mention a couple of things that we'll talk about coming up in our next episode, which should be up in a few days. We'll talk about more of the advantages of planning your trip through websites, travel agencies, or just doing it all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. This way you have a better idea of what works best for you in your travel plans.
And we'll take a deeper dive into setting your budget too, whatever that might be, as you work your way into planning all the questions that we just answered as far as destination, travel, how many days you're going to be at the park, and when exactly you want to go, because those prices will vary from time to time. So that'll wrap up this first episode of planning our Disney trip here on Theme Park Seniors. I'm Dan. This is my wife, Dawn, and we'll catch you next time here on Theme Park Seniors.
Bye, everybody.